It was not my fault. I was a big baby, over 10 pounds, too big for the door. I entered the world like a famous Roman emperor. Too big for the door might be what happens when I die. My gran owned a sweet shop in Stanmore Village. Those were different times, everyone knew everyone. I would be sent on errands to the neighbouring shops. I was a local character. I had survived falling on an electric fire in the shop, burning my right hand. I had no memory of that. It would not affect me until I needed to stretch an octave on the piano or fingerpick on a guitar. I must have been only 4, sent to the chemist a few doors away. Something was said in that chemist in the early 1960s. I don't remember the comment, but I do know that it was the point when I started being asked what had ever happened to that nice little boy I used to be. The sliding doors moment, the point at which it was determined I would not be a titan of commerce, but a fat songwriter. Hey, judgmental chemist customer. I could have been a fridge magnate. Mind your own business. I did not know I was fat. No one had prepared me. No one told me I was fat till my first day at school. Somehow the other kids all knew what fat was, and that was me, Fatty Ford, Fatso Ford. I saw no rhyme nor reason for such a cruel alliteration. I went on my first diet in infant school. Where was the obesity crisis when I needed it? I was painfully shy with strangers, but amongst my peers I was the one with the ideas. I was much more like Just William than all the fat kids on the telly at the time. How I hated Billy Bunter. I went to a boys' grammar school, even though I could not spell. The grammar school seemed not to care. It was the 60s, and what I lost in accuracy I made up for in content. But the outside world judges you thick. My eye is never drawn to the top left of the page, nor to the start of a sentence, and often I write words starting in the middle. People said I should read more, in the same way they said I should eat less. I loved learning speeches from Shakespeare, excited by reciting. I declaimed to retain, enjoying the feeling of the words in my mouth. If all the world's a stage, I would be a clown. Everyone looks fat in a clown suit. I liked English and history, but because I could not spell, I opted for sciences. We all had an interview with the headmaster. My studies must have been going quite well, because the headmaster just told me I should lose weight. I went to work in a bank, where it's all numbers. My father helped me buy a suit. I never suited suits. My father described my look as sartorial elephants. On the whole, there is a much higher rate of fatness in the adult world. I had an A-level in economics, so I actually felt confident. I enjoyed the work and the company, but I didn't make it to the end of my probation period. I was told I had a solemn and morose disposition and would put the customers off. I got a job in another bank and accidentally got demoted. It must have been my constant feeling of inferiority showing, or the lunchtime drinking. Reverend Spooner would have described me as a weary banker. From then on I would stick to driving. I later got a judgmental wife who judged me unmanly. A failed sperm test supported her argument. Perhaps I would have been more accepting of myself if I had been diagnosed or relabelled dyslexic or non-binary, but people would have still thought my problem was that I ate all the pies. Anyway, I should not need a diagnosis to be allowed to be what I am. And at least I didn't have an incurable illness. Or so I thought. A famous rock star said it was having a big nose that made him turn to music. I tried drums, but my dad said I could not tell a bar of 6/8 from a bar of soap. I tried guitar and I was told that would be okay as long as I didn't try to sing, seeing as I couldn't carry a tune in a wheelbarrow. I formed a band and wrote songs that were judged to be misspelt, even though they sounded just as sweet. My father was a musician. He played in brass bands with my brother. Whenever one of his bandmates met me, the unmentioned son, they would ask if I was musical. My father would reply, "No, he plays the guitar." I liked that joke. It was a routine I would have been happy to perform more often. I liked that I could be the butt of a different kind of joke, and a big butt at that. The band had a big PA that I could hide behind, up until I heard some applause. Then I would take centre stage. I was the only one in the band that could drive, and I was the only one that never had a girlfriend, and I'd only started a band to get a girlfriend. So I would do the takedown and pack the van. I would drop everyone off all over London. But what can a fat boy do at playing a rock and roll band in sleepy London town? After the band, I set up a home studio where I worked on improbable projects for dodgy chances with a songwriter I had met and the roadie from the band, who had always been the best musician but too unreliable to trust to play on stage. We met up after lunch every day, so I spent the morning cycling a regular 20-mile route. I followed an unsustainable low-calorie, high-nicotine diet that made me permanently light-headed. They said I was no longer fat, just large. In pictures from the time I looked like someone else. But in my head I was still the fat guy, hiding his girth in plain sight, holding it in for the camera. And that is when the neurosis starts. I describe it as the fear of falling into a vat of chocolate. The Battle of the Bulge is always a war. It never ends on a ladder, always on a snake. One day I got ill and failed a thyroid test, but scored very highly in a test for the antibodies that were trying to kill me. An illness much more common in women. My mother and aunt were both sufferers, but I was just so pleased to know it wasn't my fault. I took the medication, lost some weight and saw a dietitian. She made me lose some more weight and then told me to stop because I would never be thin and I would just make myself ill trying. Then I realised I was really not quite right in the head. I would go days without sleep. They gave me tranquilizers, which gave me a brief glimpse of a memory of how it used to be me. My boss, with perfect timing, once told me and everyone within earshot that if there was one thing guaranteed to make him want to go to sleep, it would be listening to me talk about my insomnia. You gotta laugh, ain't you? All I wanted was sleeping pills, but the doctor referred me to the local mental health unit. Phones make me anxious, but high anxiety was mental health phone interviews. My amygdala has a mind of its own and my fight and flight response doesn't know if it's coming or going. I wasn't sure how I felt about seeing a psychotherapist. I told him I'd take a placebo, if I thought it would do me any good. I wouldn't take happy pills though. I still want to play the blues. He asked me what I ultimately hoped to gain from overcoming my anxiety, and I said it was to perform my own songs solo. But I later found out that that was the only therapy I needed, catharsis and revenge. My hypothyroidism has caused me to develop skin problems, but I enjoy keeping the sun away. The hats and gloves are a distraction. I get comments, but not about my weight. And I've written a funny song about it. I forced myself to watch the documentary that Jessie Nelson of Little Mix made about her struggle to cope with all the negative comments about her weight. I thought it would just be a celeb whinge fest. I was wrong. I thought if only she had had my coping mechanisms, because I coped so well. I'm old school, mustn't grumble, sticks and stones. Laughter is the best medicine. But what about all the times I did not do something because I was too shy to ask? The things I did not offer to do because I felt I was not up to the job, only to see someone else do it much worse than I would have. To live a life never feeling good enough, and always either giving up or overcompensating. To feel the need to write stuff like this. I can't just be me, I have to be more than that. You can call me fat. The world does not need to have to learn yet another euphemism. If as a witness you are asked to describe the victim, just say he's fat. I am now almost fully desensitized.